everyone, my name is Tammie and I'm a research assistant in an immunology lab at the University of Cambridge, and this is Lepas Sekolah.
Tammie, which high school did you go to?
So I went to Kuen Cheng High School, which is a private Chinese school in Kuala Lumpur.
And what subjects did you do for SPM?
I think, if not mistaken, I did 11 subjects, and I did the science stream, which means I did the three main sciences: biology, chemistry, and physics. And I did two mathematical subjects, math and math, and then three languages, so Mandarin, Bahasa Melayu, and English. And then I did sejarah, pendidikan moral. Yeah, there was quite a lot. And because our school made it compulsory to do Chinese literature for SPM as well, so in total, yeah, that was 11 subjects.
Wow, Chinese literature. I've never heard anyone do that before.
Yes, it's quite a niche subject, and from what I know, not all private Chinese schools do that, but like our school made it compulsory for us to
most
do.
people struggle with just basic Chinese.
Yeah, it is quite intense.
So how did you do for SPM? 11 subjects in total.
I have to proudly say that I did get straight A's, and like honestly felt really happy for that because it was a lot of hard work being put into it. It was a very hectic study schedule, but I did make it, and yeah, I feel happy for that.
Amazing, amazing. Before we move on to the serious questions, what was your fondest memory in Kuen Cheng?
My fondest memory in Kuen Cheng was probably spending time with my friends. I have a feeling it's because of trauma bonding, of how much stress we were going through academically, but I think a few of the strongest friendships that I have to this day were made in high school. And yeah, it's just like going through the whole process of preparing for exams together. And then I think our class really felt like a family, so we did a lot of like gatherings together as a class as well. And yeah, I think that was one of the fondest memories of my high school.
Are you still in touch with any of these people now?
Yes, like a lot of them. In fact, I have a few high school friends that actually visited from Malaysia recently. So that was really nice.
That's very cute. So what did you want to be growing up? What did little Tammie want to be? And what inspired her? Or who inspired her?
Yeah, so little Tammie really was interested by the human body, and she was very fascinated about the idea of having a superpower to cure human diseases. So I think since young, I was just really passionate about studying like medicine and studying about how to cure diseases. Yeah, little me really wanted to be a doctor.
So besides academics, were there any other interests or passions that you had in high school?
I was also involved in the Philharmonic Orchestra. So I was a double bassist. I have learned how to play the piano outside of school, and being able to read the musical score, I was able to like adapt to like playing in an orchestra. And the double bass was a really cool instrument. It's like a huge violin that you play standing up. So yeah, that was really fun. And yeah, I think like I performed probably 4 or 5 concerts throughout the whole time in my high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you did very well in SPM. Did you get a scholarship or a fee waiver to study pre-university after SPM?
Yeah, so I actually got a fee waiver. Also, like it was based on grades for SPM. So I got a fee waiver from Sunway to do my A-levels.
But Kuen Cheng is a very good UEC school, isn't it? So why did you choose to do A-levels at Sunway as opposed to UEC at Kuen Cheng?
Yeah, a lot of people would think that like if you go to private Chinese schools, you automatically usually will make the decision to do UEC. And I have to preface by saying that both A-levels and UEC are very, very good pre-U degrees. I think the standard is like the same. But for me, I knew from high school what my direction was. I knew that UEC would not help me get to where I wanted to go. As good as a pre-U degree UEC is, it is not widely recognized by a lot of universities. It's really just a very niche group of universities that you can apply to using UEC. And some are really, really top universities in the world as well. But for me, for the universities that I had in mind at that time, UEC was not a great choice for me. Hence, I decided I would go to do A-levels, which is more widely recognized.
For the listener who is trying to make the decision between what pre-university they ought to take, what's one piece of advice you would give to them?
Yeah, so I would say definitely go and find out from the school that is offering UEC. So if you're in a private Chinese school, speak to people in like the administrative department of the school. Find out where the UEC degree can bring you. For people who are who want to come to the UK, there are some universities in the UK that actually do recognize UEC. So if that is what you have in mind, definitely speak to people in your school. And also check with the university that you're interested in applying to, because you never know. If you don't ask, you won't know.
Very solid advice. So circling back to Sunway now, what subjects did you do for A levels?
I did biology, chemistry, and math.
And how did you do for A levels?
Again, a lot of effort put into it, and I ended up scoring straight A's for my A levels as well.
What was your fondest memory in Sunway?
That would be the time that I spent with my roommate. So I actually made the decision to stay outside of my house, like away from my family for A levels, mainly because I want to learn how to be able to live independently and kind of like give myself that first taste of like living independently so I can prepare myself if I'm going abroad. Yeah, and I was very lucky to be paired with a roommate. She became a very, very good friend of mine. And yeah, I would say that's probably the fondest memory.
And would you recommend Sunway to people considering Sunway?
Yeah, definitely. I would say Sunway College actually offers a lot of different pre-university degrees, and I think for people who kind of like want an option that can give you like different outcomes, like Sunway is definitely a good place to go to. And just speaking from the A levels part, Sunway is well known as a good college that has like produced many good students that went to good universities all across the world. So in terms of reputation, they are very well known.
After A levels, you went to undergrad. Where did you go for undergrad and why? And what did you study?
I went to Imperial College London and I did a Bachelor in Science in Medical Biosciences.
Oh, Biomedical Sciences. I thought you said earlier you wanted to be a medical doctor.
Yeah.
That's different to Biomedical Sciences, right? So why? What happened? What led you to doing Biomedical Sciences as opposed to medicine?
Yeah, so I think in the later years of my high school and also the A levels, like I got exposed to like some lab work that kind of gave me a taste of like, oh, what lab work is like. And I was just really fascinated by all the techniques you can use to study all these different systems and different like things happening in the human body. And I was more drawn to lab work than being drawn to like the kind of like diagnosis aspect of medicine. So that was what shifted me from wanting to do a medical degree than to doing biomedical science. Yeah.
So you fell in love with doing research.
Yeah, I fell in love with doing lab work.
So how are they different?
I guess it's more or less the same, but because you can say like research is like you can do surveys, you can do like dry lab, like computational stuff. But I was just really drawn to like wet lab and doing like all these really, really cool like lab techniques that you can use to study all these tiny little systems in biology.
Why biomedical sciences then? Because there are many other fields of like human sciences you could do lab work in, is it that?
Yeah. Specifically biomedical sciences because since young I was just really interested in studying about the human body and like the human body systems. And why not going to a more niche like course if that's what you're asking? I kind of already had a rough idea of what I would be interested, but I didn't want to commit to it too early on in case I would have other potentials in other niches of biomedical science. Hence I picked like a broader aspect.
That makes sense. Then why Imperial?
I always knew Imperial for being a university that's well known for their research. When I looked at the biomedical science course from Imperial, they branded their course in a way where it's a flipped classroom approach. They do their lab modules in particular. That was the thing that attracted me, their lab modules. They do it in a way where they give you a research project and then you can decide the direction of your research project for the lab module. So instead of like lecturer giving you a one-on-one, like telling you how to do things step by step, they give you an overall topic for the year, for the whole cohort, and then they tell you, okay, this is what we're going to do. You plan how you do the project and you pick the target that you want to study. You are given a lot of autonomy in how you want to do your research project as part of a lab module, not for your final year project, but like in part of year 1 and year 2, you already get that experience. And I feel like I really wanted that because I think you always learn when you actually engage in something fully, and that was the experience that I really wanted.
Quick clarification then, this flipped classroom approach refers to this autonomy you had in doing the project, is it?
It's not just that, like I think like even when it came to studying other modules, like Imperial's Medical Biosciences course, they have a flipped classroom approach for basically all their modules. Instead of giving you lectures and the lecturer just telling you ABCD, like you basically have to study the material online, and when you come to class, normally you're given quizzes or like case studies to work on. So you get to use the knowledge that you have read up online.
And would you say this structure is unique to Imperial?
I would say yes. Like I haven't really heard that many other like biomedical sciences courses outside of Imperial, like students that study that course that told me that. But I don't know. I'm actually not too sure. I haven't heard, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
And I want to circle back to a point you made about your final year project. Could you explain what your final year project was, or any of the more interesting researches you had to
Yeah.
do in your
Yeah.
undergrad?
So most of my research projects at Imperial were immunology focused. I think I was just really lucky that I was given the choice to be able to do these really cool projects. One of the coolest project that I've done in Imperial was basically using a genetic engineering system called CRISPR-Cas9. It is quite well known amongst biomedical scientists. And we were basically gene editing immune cells and studying how this would affect the immune responses towards tuberculosis. It just seems like such a cool concept. And I'm very fascinated by all these lab techniques that you can do to study all of this. It definitely shaped my interest and pushed me into going into more immunology projects from there.
CRISPR is this gene editing tool thing,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
you basically use the bacteria. You incorporate the gene that you want to edit into the bacteria, and then you clone the bacteria. And then once the bacteria reproduces and it produces mass amounts of those edited genes, then you kind of in a way, put it in simple terms, you transfer the genes to the cells that you want to gene edit, and then usually that will give you edited cells. But it is not. It is very prone to error. So
That is so cool. So would you say this is also your favorite module in Imperial?
yes, the lab module was definitely my favorite. But if I have to mention another one, there was another one that I found super interesting. It was called Designing Drugs for the 21st Century. When we say designing drugs, it doesn't just mean medicine where you feed it to the patient. It can also mean other types of approaches to cure diseases. For example, stem cell therapy, immunotherapy, gene therapy. These are all very, very interesting strategies to basically combat diseases. And to be able to do that module, I was eye-opened by how many different strategies you can have to develop these cures for diseases. Yeah.
I heard that in Imperial, you have a choice of doing either an industry placement or lab research for your final year. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you chose lab research, I assume.
Yes.
Why that and not an industry placement?
After that CRISPR project that I just mentioned, I just really like the idea of discovering something that was never found before. It can be intimidating, the idea of going into a field and you don't know what you don't know, basically. But it just felt so cool. I don't know how to I don't really know how to put it into words, but I just really enjoyed that. And I think in industry, a lot of things are more organized and you have a fixed routine that you need to stick to. Whereas for academia or research, you have a bit more flexible working hours. So I think those were the few reasons why I picked a research placement rather than an industry placement. Yeah.
So you've also mentioned that arts is a big part of your life. Has this interest been maintained?
I was very active in societies in Imperial. And I was very active in performing arts in the form of I was very active in M Night, and also I was very active in the K-pop dance team at Imperial. These two events highly involved a lot of performances, sometimes competitions.
Could you explain to the audience briefly what M Night is and the role it plays within the culture of the Malaysian student community here in England?
Yeah. M Night or Malaysian Night is basically a cultural night where the Malaysians put together a performance. It's very commonly done among different Malaysian societies across universities in the UK. And each university has their own flavor to their own M Night. So I think for Imperial, our M Night is basically a play, a very long play, where it consists of acting, music, dances, vocals, and there's also Dikir Barat. M Night is just a platform for Malaysians to kind of embrace their culture because we're so far away from home. I'm pretty sure a lot of Malaysians can relate to me saying that we definitely miss our culture being all the way in the UK. So I think M Night is a platform for us to embrace it and also to showcase our culture to people who have not known anything about Malaysian culture before.
Amazing. You said there's a lot of flavors to the different M Nights, right?
Yes.
What's the most unique feature of Imperial's M Night?
Unique feature. Oh, that okay. I would say that Imperial is well known for our Dikir Barat. It is not an easy performance to choreograph. I actually did not know about Dikir Barat before I went to Imperial, and Imperial M Night was the first taste of Dikir Barat that I had. And yeah, it's just really, really cool. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say good things about Imperial's Dikir Barat. So if in the future you would like to watch Imperial's M Night, be sure to stay tuned to watch like Dikir Barat. That's one of the highlights.
Good shout out. And you've been involved in Imperial M Night for 2 years.
Yes.
Why 2 years? What drove you to staying on for 2 years? It sounds like a massive endeavor.
Yeah. Again, I really love the idea of performing, and I think this definitely stemmed somewhere in high school when I was like performing on stage as part of the orchestra. Again, like the culture aspect, I just really wanted to showcase that to non-Malaysians and to be proud of my culture. In the first year, I was the producer, and in that year, I think like it was the year after COVID. So I was really passionate about making M Night a physical thing again, because the year before that it was online, and I think a lot of people kind of like lost interest in doing M Night after that. In the second year, I was a choreographer, and like I just really wanted to make M Night like back to something physical and for people to enjoy. That's why like I was like really adamant about being involved in it.
You mentioned being involved in the K-pop society. Did this come after, alongside M Night, or?
It came alongside. So it was the year that I was elected for producer for M Night. I also really wanted to audition for the K-pop dance team because I have been a K-pop fan since high school. Initially, when I was a K-pop fan, I was like kind of interested. I was like attracted to the artist, but slowly it kind of shifted to being attracted to the performance aspects of K-pop, like how they're dancing and they're singing at the same time, and like the expressions. Like I think that was more interesting to me at that point, and I really wanted to try it, and that's what drove me to audition for it. And yeah, I made it into the team. So yes.
Congratulations. You mentioned choreographing for M Night. Did you choreograph for K-pop society as well?
Not for K-pop society, because for K-pop society, most of the choreographies were already set by the K-pop artists. We just need to follow. We didn't really choreograph like fresh choreography, but sometimes there are certain aspects of the performance that we will add our own twist into it. So like for competitions and performances, we might add certain signature moves of our teams into the choreograph, but it wasn't like choreographing a whole dance. So yeah.
How big of an impact would you say your artistic pursuits had in your undergrad life in Imperial?
It definitely played a big role in like uplifting my undergrad life. The commitments for doing biomedical science was so huge because it's like, obviously, as I mentioned, a flipped classroom approach. So you kind of need a lot of self-discipline to study and prepare for exams and stuff. But I needed a balance on the side, and I think my artistic pursuits, like both in M Night and in K-pop society, definitely acted as a very good balance. Performing is such an expressive thing. It just lets me express myself. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. So it was a really, really great balance.
What would you say was your fondest memory in Imperial then?
100% M Night. I've met so many interesting people. It was really fun because we even managed to get non-Malaysians to join, and like slowly, M Night just became like a cultural event that was not only allowed to be participated by Malaysians, but also non-Malaysians who are interested in Malaysian culture. Because you spend so much time with these people preparing for M Night, and like you just get to know you just make so many valuable friendships along the way. And I think, that was definitely one of my fondest memories at Imperial.
Having considered your journey from SPM to A-levels and university, I would figure that you are one of the kind of people who knew what she wanted to do straight out of graduation. Was this the case for you?
Yeah, I think like I kind of had an overall idea of what I wanted to do after graduation, which was to continue working in research or being in that environment. So my initial thought was I really wanted to do a postgraduate degree, whether it was a PhD or a master's. But it's not that easy funding-wise, obviously, for international students. And I figured if I really wanted to continue being in a lab environment and doing research, I could also work as a research assistant in a research lab and like gain that lab experience while getting paid and like kind of having a study break while I can like decide on what I want to do next.
And this is what you end up doing next?
Yeah, I'm here in Cambridge now, and I'm a research assistant working in an immunology lab. So yeah.
Could you briefly summarize your research?
The lab that I'm in, we basically study tissue immunology. And tissue immunology is basically just looking at how the immune system functions in different tissues. And my lab is a very big lab, so everyone kind of does different things. So we focus on like kidney, the gut, the brain. I'm doing a project on the skin right now, and like we study it in the context of infectious or like even in immune rejection when it comes to transplant or autoimmune diseases. So yeah, it is very broad. And our lab also does quite a variety of like different techniques where we also use Sometimes we use animal models to study that, and sometimes we use patient samples from clinical trials to study that.
So you study how the immune system reacts differently to different parts of the body.
Yeah, how it functions in different parts of the body. So like how is it distinct in different tissues?
But a previous guest has mentioned that it's become increasingly competitive to break into research and academia. Has this been the case for you as well?
Yeah, I have to say, like, getting to where I am is not easy. It might sound very easy through my words, but academia is a very competitive environment. It is very cutthroat as well. I think the main reason for that is because people are looking for a very specific skill set, but not all fresh graduates have that skill set when they graduate. The opportunities for you to level up, let's say doing a postgraduate degree, is very difficult for international students like us, right? So I think that's the main factor why it's so difficult to get in. But with that being said, it's not impossible. You need to be smart about how you want to like use your cards and get into academia.
So by being cutthroat, you mean that it has a very high skill floor to get into. Is that what you mean?
I think not just that, like sometimes people's research interests overlap. Sometimes it feels like a race against time. Who can get the findings first? And like science doesn't always work in your favor, unfortunately. Experiments fail. You might not know what went wrong. It takes time, it takes a lot of money. So a lot of resources go into it. And then sometimes you just have like these competitors who have similar interests to you. And like you need to work on who is going to get the results out first. Yeah, so there's a lot of different factors.
That's very pragmatic. So what about you then? You mentioned that you had to play your cards right and smart. What set you apart?
I'm very lucky to have done my degree at Imperial, which has given me a lot of lab experience prior to graduating. I think I'm already at a huge advantage for that. But I think something else that I did on top of that was starting to do a lot of networking and just speaking to people. Because sometimes you never know, like when you speak to a professor, like someday, like through a very casual chat after a seminar, they might have an opening in their lab, or they might find your skill sets very compatible with what they need. Who knows? And they might just offer you a PhD project or a summer placement. So yeah.
Is this the case for you?
It happened to me actually in my second year of uni, where I approached a graduate teaching assistant, and he basically had an opening in his lab for a summer project. And yeah, I was there for a 2-month summer placement.
So you mentioned a point about networking and speaking to people. That's a very important skill to have. But I don't think many high schoolers or many undergrads know how to network well or how to begin. Could you give them one piece of advice on how to do this?
Be confident in yourself, but don't be overconfident. Yeah, be confident in the skills that you have obtained so far, and try to like ditch the misconception that to get into academia or to speak to these like professors, you need to be smart to speak to them. If you put yourself out there and you market yourself well, show them or tell them the skills that you have, who knows, they might actually find your skills valuable and you might actually get an opportunity to work with them. Yeah, don't be shy, be confident, speak to these people. You never know what's going to happen. Like you might actually get something.
So would you say the best place to start is with your teachers?
Yeah, definitely. You already have rapport with the teachers or the lecturers that teach you in uni or in college. So that's the best place to start because they kind of know where you are in terms of like how you're doing academically. They can also act as a mentor and they could actually pivot you to the right people to speak to. So definitely start from there.
Solid advice. Considering it's so competitive and so cutthroat, what was your game plan into job applications when you graduated or before graduation?
Yeah, so I think for me, to be honest, when I was applying for jobs, I didn't really focus on just immunology labs. I kind of also widened my targets to slightly non-immunology labs, like for example, some cancer-related labs as well. But they're mainly still labs that my techniques or my skill set would have been useful. So that was my game plan going into it, looking for labs that were looking for the skill sets that I already had. And I was just applying to anywhere in the UK. I was based in London at that point when I was job hunting, but I applied to all the way even up to Scotland. Like if I really got a job at that point, I was ready to relocate because if it's truly a good opportunity to work in a lab in the university I really want to work in, I'm willing to relocate to go there. Yeah, so that was my game plan.
And so how did you land your current role?
After so many submissions, after so many applications, I think I spent a good 3 months job hunting. until I found the current role that I am in. Mainly the skill set was very compatible with what my current boss is looking for. And I have a lot of fundamental knowledge in immunology because of my uni experience. So I think that definitely helped me land my role. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to break into academia or research?
Grasp onto any opportunities you have to expand your skill set, because I think that will be very useful. And as I said, it's quite hard to get like a very high level of lab experience before you graduate. So if you have that opportunity in your undergraduate, grasp onto that, like catch on to that. If any professors are trying to like look for people to do a summer placement, go and do that, because that will definitely give you a bigger skill set and will definitely get you to a higher level of your lab techniques and lab experience.
Coming back to the present again, how has your experience in Cambridge been so far?
It's been quite like up to expectations. I'm in a big lab, as I mentioned, and people do very, very different things. Some people work on a kidney project, some people work on a gut project, some people work on mouse work, some people work on human work. A benefit of being in the lab like that is that you get to learn so much, because you're just interacting with different people doing different things, and you're at a junior level. So being a research assistant, I'm not committed to just one project. I can be involved in a few different projects. And yeah, that's definitely like expanded my skill set way more than when I was in Imperial. Being a researcher, like the way you start approaching scientific questions, that's something that I really got to learn as well. It's been really, really up to expectation. It's been really, really useful, like learning experience.
How has this experience, this job you have,
Yeah.
affected your career plans down the road?
Again, being in an immunology lab, and I think I am still interested in immunology, so that's still good. I'm definitely looking to pursue like my career further in this field, and I think the next step for me would be to start a PhD, which I recently landed an offer for, and I will be starting my PhD also in an immunology lab in October of this year. Yeah.
Congrats!
Thank you.
So I think the listener or the person watching this video would be watching you like, I think mid-July. So that's pretty soon already.
Yes.
Okay. But you mentioned earlier on that it's tough
Yes.
for an international student to land PhD funding.
Yeah.
Would you say that in your application experience so far, funding has been the biggest obstacle you have to overcome?
Definitely funding is not easy. As an international student, there are only the limited few opportunities that you might have. Sadly speaking, like most of the opportunities that I looked at, I think I would say like more than half that I looked at, they specify that they fund you even though you're an international student, but they only fund you up to home rate. So that's basically half the price that they fund you. But there are some fundings that obviously fund you the full international fees, but as you can imagine, it's really competitive. It is very, very difficult for international students. There are funding options out there. You just really have to try really hard.
Grounding it in your experience, how have you overcome this barrier?
I managed to secure a bursary. It's not really like a funding opportunity, but rather like a discount. And it's offered by the University of Cambridge. I'm not sure about other universities. I'm pretty sure other universities might have this same scheme as well. But particularly the University of Cambridge, they offer this scheme for staff. So if you're working under the University of Cambridge, and if you can prove to the university that your job actually overlaps with your PhD project, they can actually offer you a discount for your fees, regardless of your immigration status, which is really, really good. And like your own contribution is actually only 1/3 of the home rate, which for my case, I will only need to contribute £3,000 per year, and I can easily pay that out of my salary. So that works perfectly.
So you're getting paid a salary,
Yes.
you're getting a discount to your tuition,
Yes.
and all in all, it's a lot more affordable now.
Yeah, it is definitely. I would definitely say if your university offers that option, go for that. That's probably the way to go for international students right now. Wanting to do a PhD is to work and do a PhD, because especially if your work is in academia anyway, your day-to-day routine is the same. It's you're working in a lab, or you're doing whatever computational things that you're doing to do your research. Definitely think of that as a possible option rather than to look for sole funding. Yeah, that might be easier.
Yeah, so you're essentially getting a PhD whilst you do your work, right?
Yes, correct.
To talk about your PhD now, do you have an idea of what your PhD area is going to be?
Yeah. So my supervisor, he's a rheumatologist, and he's really interested in studying the immunology in the joint, particularly in different disease contexts, like both in infectious and immune and autoimmune. We're basically interested in studying how the pain and the immune system can communicate with each other. Yeah.
Previous guest has mentioned before that between a choice of university and choice of supervisor, the choice of supervisor to him was the trump factor. Was this the case for you as well?
Both the topic and the supervisor is important, because this is also, I think, advice for people wanting to look to do a PhD. Your supervisor is going to be someone who you're going to see like on a day-to-day basis. There's no right or wrong, like black and white way of picking a supervisor. It mainly depends on what's a good fit for you. So some supervisors are a bit more hands-off, some supervisors are a bit more, some people like to say the word micromanaging. So I think it's important to know which is best for you. So yes, how your principal investigator acts as a supervisor for you as a PhD student is very important. Getting to understand the lab culture and how they supervise you is very important before you decide to commit to doing a PhD.
What's one piece of practical advice would you give someone making their PhD applications?
Don't be shy. Send that email to that principal investigator, because what's the worst they can do? Like not respond, right? If you don't try, you don't know what's possible. So if you're even hesitating whether or not you want to send that email and ask that professor, hey, I'm interested in doing research in your lab, don't hesitate, do it.
So again, there's been a strong theme in your story so far that your interests carried over and developed naturally over time. I'm curious to know, is it the same with your performing arts? Are you still committing to them now?
I am still dancing to K-pop, as I mentioned, and in fact, I am actually a dance teacher, a K-pop dance teacher in Cambridge. So I am doing this under this Instagram page called Access K-pop. We're basically a freelance dance academy, and our goal is to make K-pop dance classes accessible for people of different ages. I'm the representative for Cambridge, and I teach classes every Tuesday evenings.
Why are you still so active in the K-pop dance scene?
Like as I mentioned before, like dance is just, it has just become such an important part of my life. It's like something super spiritual for me. It's a huge confidence boost and also a huge way to express myself without actually needing to putting things into words. That's why I'm still very adamant about doing K-pop now, despite how busy my schedule is. But yeah, dance in general is just something that has become so important in my life.
You mentioned that your schedule is packed.
Yes.
And I would think it's packed. You're doing exhibitions, you're teaching. How did you balance all of this and still manage to do well?
Number one, I make sure I get enough rest, because without the rest, I won't be able to do all of this. And then second, I think I just compartmentalize things quite well. So I make full use of my calendar, compartmentalizing it very well, and like setting anchors in different parts of my life. For example, if I'm about to teach a dance class, I would leave work at a certain time and then like go home and do a specific routine, whether it's like to do stretching or to like wear a specific set of clothes that I usually wear for dancing. I think like just compartmentalizing everything very well makes me able to like juggle different things, but also be able to like do well in them.
What's one piece of advice would you give to someone still in high school?
Something that I really want to say to people in high school that are watching this is that don't have the concept of you need to know what you want to do for your life the moment you graduate. It's normal to feel lost and not know what you want to do. But the most important thing is not to over fixate on the future and just remember what you can do in the present. Focus on your commitments now. Focus on getting them done well. And then eventually life will take you where it will take you. Don't let the idea of not knowing what you want to do discourage you from doing anything. Because in a way, not knowing what to do also means that you have possibilities of what you can do.
And what would you say to 17-year-old Tammie right now?
Yeah, so I really like this question because from time to time I always like wonder what would young me think of myself if she sees me currently. So something that I want to say to 17-year-old Tammie is continue chasing your dreams. I'm very proud of you. And yeah, continue to stay determined as you are, because without you being determined, I wouldn't be where I am today.
And finally, could you summarize your journey Lepas Sekolah in 3 words?
Accomplishments, fulfillment, and growth. And for those who are watching, this is Tammie, and this is my journey Lepas Sekolah.